Jane Low, and I'm at Black Hat Singapore here 2025 at the AI Summit. And with me today, I'm very pleased and very privileged to have Andrew Chen, who is with Trend Micro, who is going to be sharing with us on the latest AI innovation trends and as well as the security concerns. So thank you so much, Andrew, for your time today.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I'm very glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, so Andrew, you know, the theme of your keynote as well as the theme of this AI Summit is about innovations, balancing innovations with security challenges. So the first question I think many audience would be curious to find out is what are the innovations that excites you and what are some of the security concerns you have seen so far?
Right, so this is a very common question. As we see so many innovation coming within this AI boom era. So the customers are actually having a lot of accessible AI made available for them to pretty much redefine the entire application development cycle, right? So oftentimes we encourage the customer to really understand where exactly is their AI. So the entire footprint, the entire data pipelining, the entire attack surfaces, they need to have complete visibility to begin with. And then a lot of innovation will help them to accelerate the workflow, the intelligence. And then, for example, we pretty much support the SOC operations. So the SecOps now is taking on the spear front of taking AI as the innovation inertia to really help them to redefine their operation procedures, right? So things like GenAI has been helping the market to elevate for the past 2 years. And then this year, we see a lot of execution been happening, meaning a lot of application now, no matter the existing application will be embedding with the new AI components, right? Or it could be a complete new application created with the entirely new AI-centric approach.
Right.
And then through that entire cycle, the customer needs to have complete visibility and then be able to quantify their risk in terms of what the potential weakest link that would be most vulnerable to the potential threat actor to be taken advantage of.
Yes, yeah, I'm going to come to that, some of these threats and mitigation measures a little bit more. And you talk about repurposing some of these applications. And I think some audience would also be familiar with threat actors repurposing some of these GenAI, chatbots, right? For in the dark web, for phishing purposes, for deepfakes, right? But before we go into that, talking about GenAI, it's when we think about the architecture and the infrastructure, is the difference, I guess, with the traditional software really is the focus on models and data. And a lot of threat actors will target this and exploit the vulnerabilities and weaknesses. And you talk about one aspect in your presentation, which is a chain of thought. Can you explain to our audience what that is? So,
GenAI has been around for years. And then, for example, recent years, we see a lot of improvements on the GenAI front is the reasoning cycle. Reasoning cycle will represent a good chain of thoughts to be able to provide more contextual information. And then throughout the entire chain of thoughts exercise, which I shared earlier in the keynote, is more vulnerable and is exposed to potential adversary attacks throughout the entire chain of thoughts. For example, we use the DeepSeek as an example. We'd be able to, using the typical pen testing tool, to validate a potential infiltration point. So the customer can now look at the potential pen testing result to be able to mitigate the potential threats been happening.
Right, it's sort of like simulating what the threat actors' actions could be.
Right, so the pen testing would be a sequence of interrogation to look at the robustness of the chain of thoughts interaction, making sure all the predefined guardrail is intact. The entire supervised process has the highest level of integrity.
Oh, right. So the chain of thought concept is kind of like, it's one example of how AI is a double-edged sword. So the threat actors could abuse the chain of thought process, but on the other hand, cyber defenders, pen testers can also use it to actually interrogate, like you say, some of the potential vulnerabilities that the threat actors can exploit.
Absolutely. So we have to think like attacker. Right, we have to come in through from attacker side and then to really interrogate the whole sequence, making sure all the pre-measure has to be there and the robustness has to be there. And in the case of potential the infiltration happen or the compromise or tampering of the entire prompt and the data models, we need to have a way to alert our customer. That's why the MLSecOps is so important throughout the entire AI journey.
Right, so MLSecOps, which is like machine learning security operations, right? How different is it from DevSecOps, which is the traditional software development cycle? Because I think a lot of the audience will also say AI is really just another piece of software, right?
Exactly.
So when we deploy it, we inherit all the security weaknesses, we amplify some of the security weaknesses. So how is MLSecOps addressing some of these concerns?
Right, so for those customers has complete a very mature operation based on DevSecOps. To them, MLSecOps is one of the extension that's focusedly, deliberately on the AI infrastructure, right? So it's similar to the DevSecOps starting from all the way shift left. From the initial stage of the application development cycle, we had to infuse the corresponding AI practice into the overarching DevSecOps altogether. We do not want to have silos between the ML ops team and the SecOps team separately. So meaning that going back to the conventional software development cycle, just have to pay attention to if there's a new AI-related data pipelining, it has to be combined altogether from the beginning.
Right, okay. You talk about also in your presentation AI-BOMs, which is AI bill of materials. So that's
Correct.
also, again, building off the traditional concept of S-BOM, which is software bill of materials.
Right.
So how different or how similar is it?
It's essentially no difference, but just we have to make sure the conventional S-BOM can keep up with the new AI journey. For example, the S-BOM is great, but if you don't have S-BOM, that's fine. You can start to build a complete manifest for the entire AI data pipelining, meaning what are the additional data, library, component models has been incorporated into the entire development cycle, right? So you have to make sure you have the complete guardrail, the best practice, the best pen testing cycle to augment the entire operations.
Mm-hmm. Earlier, we talked about how chain of thought is a kind of like a red teaming sort of exercise, right? What about human in the loop? How important is it in mitigating, some of these security concerns?
Right. So human in the loop is always essential as part of the supervision entire cycle, and it's not going to go away, to be honest. So the human in the loop is always a good checkpoint for us to validate, making sure the model, the response, the prompt response does not drift, won't be biased, and it's not being tempered by the adversary. So that's why that would tie into a typical runtime monitoring, quote unquote AIDR, to make sure all the reasoning result is not biased, does not drift, does not hallucinate, and it does not break the rule or go over the guardrail limitation. So that would reduce the amount of damage for the customer.
Right. So I think a lot of audience will say, well, GenAI is supposed to, improve the productivity. Now we have human in the loop. So, at what stage do we have to implement this human in the loop so that we don't lose that productivity gain?
So that goes back to our the second dimension when we try to crack the nut of the entire AI journey is AI for security. Meaning, if we have human in the loop as a part of the checkpoint, we also want to have enough contextual support for the human in the loop to have a better decision process and better way to automate, right? So the human can always keep up with the landscape, and the human can also have the maximum jurisdiction across the entire cycle.
Right. Earlier, we talked about some of the novel threats that GenAI is introducing, right? Deepfakes is one of them, phishing, sophisticated phishing emails. And I think that one that a lot of audience have also seen in the media as well is prompt engineering, which is something that is also threat actors is using to actually attack the models and the data. So what have you seen that's interesting and concerning in that area, and what are the kind of mitigation measures?
Right. So, like going back to in the AI era, there's a lot of AI-generated code helping the threat actors to do a better job. For example, we see a lot of deepfake, deep audio-related threat last year. So, Chen be able to come up with the countermeasures to help our customer to detect and alert them there's a deepfake or audio attack going on. So that's a very good defensive measure that we introduced last year to help the defenders to protect the environment. And we also see a lot of uplift on the weaponizations. Weaponization meaning the adversary also using GenAI to do a better way to reconnaissance, to create a better social engineering cycle, and then come up with a more crafty result on the spear phishing content. And those we have also a way to detect AI-generated code to educate the customer. This weaponized payload going through the spear phishing attack, the entire envelope, the way to construct the paragraph, the language is generated by the AI-generated code with the malicious intent, right? So coming from spear phishing payload itself with the corresponding deepfake video and audio, those are things that we detect and alert the customer the most.
What about prompt engineering? What kind of mitigation measures would you propose?
So prompt engineering is also one of the biggest concerns the customer need to address. That's why Chen also have AI gateway to be able to examine all the prompt being issued to any of the prompt of all the GenAI services the customer has. So you need to have a sound AI gateway to examine all the prompts that's being coming with potential malicious intent, or it could be initial discovery, try to figure out the next steps. So in my previous keynote, there's a complete attack sequence to really exhaust the potential weakest link to get into the models or the data to be able to poison, temper, or even to distill, or even to exfil the data.
That's right, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So as you say in your presentation, and one of the questions that was raised after your presentation is that, it is such a complex challenge. The emerging AI and GenAI introduces a lot of novel threats, as well as amplify some of the existing threats. So what are some of the sort of key actions you recommend organizations to take when they adopt AI, or even if they don't adopt AI, that they need to be aware of?
Well, it's very difficult for any organization not to adopt any piece of AI today. So like I said earlier, visibility is always important as a starting point. They need to have full visibility in terms of where the AI is. Also understand where's the potential shadow AI, unsanctioned AI.
Shadow AI.
Shadow or unsanctioned AI within the environment. So going back to my often question to CISO is, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, where is your AI? So they need to have some level of AI manifest, quote unquote AI-BOM, right? That will be the foundational piece for them to build a sound AI SPM, the security posture management. And the way we do this, we gather the data source, we kind of run analytics on the posture score, and then we take this further with the predictive analysis, educating the customer what might be the potential attack path. So the customer now can proactively get the potential risk quantification throughout the assessment. They can have a better way to mitigate the threat before even it's happening.
Mm-hmm. So it's leverages off the existing, or rather the traditional risk management approach, right? So we need to view it as a risk management kind of exercise.
Exactly. So it's actually coming from the conventional risk management, but just with the focus on AI pipelining and journey for the customer. So meaning we're expanding attack surfaces for the customer, right? It's going to be a hybrid environment with the conventional application, the existing attack surface. But if the customer has a new application or new data pipelining, we need to make sure it's all combined together into the overall holistic visibility, right? The overall holistic risk quantification for the customer. So the customer can be able to carry out proactive playbook to respond to it.
Right. So we talked about some of the novel risks. We talked about some existing risks. I know it's very difficult to make predictions, but what concerns you, for the coming 2025 in terms of Gen AI kind of threat landscape?
Right. So it's going to be going back to the fundamentals of Gen AI. We are now in the era of leveraging heavily on a reinforced learning. So the reinforced learning is a key success to have more accurate, more precise result for the customer, no matter coming from the typical posture management throughout the quantification or the potential predictions. It will become, if we're going through this continuous loop with reinforcement. Yeah, so reinforcement is key to win for this year. I think a lot of reinforcement will be made into the typical practice cycle.
Right. Okay. So obviously, I guess there needs to be more attention paid to in terms of how we secure the data sources that's going to the reinforcement cycle.
That's right.
As well as the model itself. Right. Okay. So Andrew, thank you so much for your time today to take us through very, very quickly some of the emerging threats in the Gen AI landscape today, as well as some of the mitigation measures we should consider, as well as some of the potential risks that may emerge in the coming year. So thank you so much, Andrew, for your time today.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.